everybody. Fox News Alert now on the art of the deal from Argentina. G20 nearly underway. We expect headlines for the next 3 hours, for the next 3 days, really. And we got one earlier today. I'm Bill Hemmer. It's Friday. Welcome here to America's Newsroom.
We will see where the next few hours takes us. Good morning, everyone. I'm Sandra Smith. The official welcome ceremony set to start 1 hour from now, and trade talks already front and center. The president participating in a signing ceremony for his highly touted NAFTA replacement, saying the new U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement will lead to more growth and opportunity across North America.
We've worked hard on this agreement. It's been long and hard. We've taken a lot of barbs and a little abuse, and we got there. It's great for all of our countries. Thank you for your close partnership.
The tariff-free access that NAFTA guaranteed for more than 70% of Canada's total exports is secure, and that's essential for businesses, families, jobs, entrepreneurs, and hardworking people in every corner of our country.
So that was just about an hour ago, and already we have major scheduling changes for this. President Trump canceled that meeting with Vladimir Putin. The escalating tensions between Russia and Ukraine, they're still alive and kicking. Kevin Cork's down in Argentina. Doug McElway picks up our coverage live in Washington. Doug, good to see you. Good morning.
Morning, Bill. You know, our younger viewers may not remember the name Ross Perot, the billionaire businessman who ran for president in 1992, criticizing NAFTA. His famous quote, "That giant sucking sound you hear is jobs leaving the United States." Well, he proved absolutely correct about NAFTA, and President Trump tapped into that thinking when he said NAFTA needed to be renegotiated. Well, this morning came the payoff when Trump, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, and Mexican President Nieto stood at the G20 summit to sign this new U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement.
The USMCA is the largest, most significant, modern, and balanced trade agreement in history. All of our countries will benefit greatly. As part of our agreement, the United States will be able to lock in our market access to Canada and Mexico and greatly expand our agricultural exports, something we've been wanting to do for many years.
As I discussed with President Trump a few days ago, the recent plant closures by General Motors, which affects thousands of Canadian and American workers and their families, are a heavy blow. Make no mistake, we will stand up for our workers and fight for their families and their communities. And Donald, it's all the more reason why we need to keep working to remove the tariffs on steel and aluminum between our countries.
That little jab at the president from Mr. Trudeau about tariffs. In fact, tariffs are high on the agenda for Saturday night's dinner meeting between President Trump and President Xi of China. But many analysts are downplaying the prospects of any kind of a trade deal between those two countries. One sign of the pessimism is the recent inclusion of U.S. Trade Advisor Peter Navarro to the U.S. delegation at Saturday night's dinner. Navarro is a hardliner against Chinese steel dumping. He's a firm advocate for China containment. The Chinese are aware of that and don't take kindly to his invitation. In addition, the hoped-for meeting with President Putin is now off, as you said, Bill. The president tweeting while on board the flight to Argentina yesterday, quote, "Based on the fact that the ships and the sailors have not been returned to Ukraine from Russia, I have decided it would be best for all parties concerned to cancel my previously scheduled meeting in Argentina with President Vladimir Putin." The president did add, however, that he has not ruled out a future meeting when that Ukrainian-Russia situation is resolved.
Off we go. Thank you, Doug. Good stuff there. Setting the table from Washington. Doug McElway there. More news now with Sandra.
Former Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort, we are learning, will not be in the courtroom today as a sentencing date is set for charges stemming from the Mueller investigation. It comes just one day after a guilty plea from the president's former attorney, Michael Cohen, who admitted he lied to Congress about a real estate deal in Moscow. Chief Intelligence Correspondent Catherine Harris joins us now live from Washington with the latest there. Catherine, good morning.
Well, thank you, Sandra. This morning, the lawyers for the president's former campaign chairman, Paul Manafort, and the special counsel square off in court. The hearing is set to begin just a half hour from now. The special counsel alleges that the plea deal fell apart because they say Manafort lied and did not fully cooperate. But Manafort's team says the special counsel wants information that he simply does not have and cannot provide. Fox News understands that special counsel investigators pressed Manafort on the June 2016 Trump Tower meeting with Russians who promised dirt on then candidate Hillary Clinton, and specifically the involvement of the president's son-in-law, Jared Kushner. According to emails, Kushner abandoned the meeting early and had no interest in the Russians. Here's the president on Manafort yesterday.
It's very sad what's happened to Paul, the way he's being treated. I've never seen anybody treated so poorly. But the question was asked to me by the New York Post, and I said, no, I have not offered any pardons. And I think they asked, or whatever, would you? I said, I'm not taking anything off the table.
Meantime, on Capitol Hill, the reaction divides along political lines.
I think the president is a smart man, and I think he understands that it would distract us, to say the least, from a lot of other very important issues. And I don't think he'll do that, nor do I think he's going to fire Mr. Mueller.
That would be a complete abuse of power. The power of the pardon is not ever been used to protect a president and his family. And again, we've seen from this White House again and again disregard for rule of law.
We do not expect the Manafort hearing to last all that long. What we do expect is that they'll set a sentencing date in the very near future. And as we get more details, of course, we'll bring them to you, Sandra.
And Catherine, how is the president's legal team pushing back against the Cohen plea?
Well, this morning, a source close to the president's legal team told Fox News they are revisiting these letters to special counsel Robert Mueller and Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein from 2017, where they asked for an investigation of the conduct and sworn testimony to Congress by former FBI Director James Comey. The letters to Mueller and Rosenstein level multiple accusations against Comey, including his handling of the Clinton email case. As you know, the Inspector General has already found Comey was insubordinate because he went around his established chain of command as well as the procedures. The letters also call for a review of media leaks authorized by Comey to kickstart the special counsel investigation. And as you know, we've been waiting for the Inspector General, who's doing an independent separate report on that same issue, Sandra.
Catherine Herridge, thank you for your continued reporting on that.
It's good stuff from yesterday and again today. Thank you, Catherine. For more on all this now, Charlie Hurt, opinion editor of Washington Times, Fox News contributor. Charlie, how are you on a Friday?
Good morning, Bill.
There are a lot of theories out there, a lot of stuff we do not know. What has changed fundamentally, do you think, in 24 hours, Charlie?
Well, I think the biggest, probably the biggest change is the fact that if you have Michael Cohen out here changing his story, copying to telling falsehoods to the Mueller investigation, that is significant. That does change certainly some of the stories that the campaign was issuing at the time about Donald Trump's dealings with Russia at the time. But the problem remains. This doesn't have anything to do with the initial purpose, the initial scope of the Mueller investigation. It also, calls it a question if Mueller is aiming to use somebody like Michael Cohen or Paul Manafort as a witness to level charges against the president. You've got truly compromised witnesses here. The other issue, I guess, the other important issue here is the fact that, all of this can still play out in the political realm. You have Democrats now taking control of the House. They've made it very clear that they want to make this an issue for Democrats in the House, in their investigations. And I can guarantee you, Bill, that we will be hearing about all of these details ad nauseum over the next 2 years.
Okay, I went you ad nauseum 2 more years. Maybe more. Here is what we woke up to. I just want you to react to this tweet from the president from Argentina earlier today. He says, "Oh, I get it. I'm a very good developer, happily living my life when I see our country going in the wrong direction, to put it mildly," he says. "Against all odds, I decided to run for president and continue to run my business. Very legal and very cool. Talked about on the campaign trail, lightly looked at doing a building somewhere in Russia, put up zero money, zero guarantees, and did not do the Project Witch Hunt." That tweet from earlier today followed this comment from the South Lawn of the White House from yesterday.
He's a weak person and not a very smart person. He's got himself a big prison sentence, and he's trying to get a much lesser prison sentence by making up a story. Now, here's the thing. Even if he was right, it doesn't matter, because I was allowed to do whatever I wanted during the campaign.
That was his position initially. Again today, Charlie, that's his position.
I think that not only will we be hearing a lot about Michael Cohen and Paul Manafort from Democrats in the House, but we're going to also hear a lot of pushback over the next 2 years directly from the president. I think what's important here is that the president is following this closely. He's watching all of these developments very closely and is developing as he goes along, as he always does, a defense. He's going to defend himself. And the president is correct about this. we knew about these his business dealings during the election, and that's where the political side of this sort of runs into some choppy waters for Democrats, and that is the fact that when Republicans nominated him and Donald Trump, and when voters elected him president, they knew about these deals. They knew he had all of these business deals around the world, and they took that into consideration, and it didn't affect the outcome of the election. So Donald Trump has been able to work that angle.
That's what's moving in Washington. Argentina, meanwhile, just about 15 seconds. Do you think this meeting with Putin goes back on sometime in the next 24 hours?
I don't know if it does this particular weekend. Well, I don't know about that, but I do suspect that it will go back on at some point.
Thank you, Charlie. Nice to see you. Charlie Hurt there in Washington on a Friday morning. Nice to have you along with us today. And, you know, this meeting was canceled, Sandra, obviously because of the situation with Ukraine that happened last Sunday. You take these ships and these sailors hostage, and they are still being held today. So unless anything gives there, the White House and the president are going to stick to where they are.
We should start to see those images of world leaders arriving at the G20 summit there shortly. The president is expected to arrive at the site of the G20 summit top of the hour. So we'll wait on some of those pictures out of Argentina. Meanwhile, ex-FBI Director James Comey going to court slamming a House Republican-issued subpoena as harassment. One of the committee chairmen who issued that subpoena, Bob Goodlatte, is standing by. We will get his response next.
People passing through these Northern Triangle states, Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador, trying to get to the United States. They want to solve the problem just as badly as we do.
Fox News alert, former FBI Director James Comey now challenging a subpoena from Republicans in the House. He accuses them of partisan harassment for demanding a closed-door testimony in the FBI actions leading up to the election in 2016. The House Judiciary Committee Chair is Bob Goodlatte, the Republican from Virginia. Sir, how are you? And welcome back here on America's Newsroom. So you got your work cut out for you. James Comey says he's worried about leaks. Should he be worried?
Well, first of all, we don't condone leaks. Trey Gowdy and I concerned about that. And since Jim Comey claims he wants transparency, we've already indicated that we will release the transcript of this under oath private interview the next day after it takes place. We're almost done with this investigation. He's one of the last witnesses. 16 other people have testified under oath in the same setting that we're asking him to do it. And his claim that he needs to do it in public is, in my opinion, a farce. Quite frankly, 5 minutes is not enough time for an experienced former prosecutor like Trey Gowdy or John Ratcliffe to follow all of the threads that need to be followed, the hundreds of questions that need to be asked. And that needs to be done in a private setting.
Okay,
but we're happy for the transparency.
If there are hundreds of questions, give me one that's on your mind. What do you need to know, sir?
Well, we need to know, just as one example, what Jim Comey was doing during the time between when he wrote a statement that exonerated Hillary Clinton and when he actually issued it in revised form a number of weeks later. We need to know what Jim Comey was doing with regard to the initiation of the so-called Trump-Russia collusion investigation. And we need to know why he persisted in pursuing surveillance of Carter Page, a United States citizen, for a full year when there's no evidence that Carter Page did anything that would suggest that
you don't
he was colluding with the Russians.
You don't think you can get those answers in an open hearing?
No, because you get an answer and then you have 3 or 4 follow-up questions. The interviews generally have ranged 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours. We rotate 1 hour for Republican counsel and then 1 hour for the Democrats to ask their questions. And when we're done with this investigation, which is obviously going to be soon, we'll release all of these transcripts so the American people can see what was going on in 2016 and leading into 2017.
Trey Gowdy suggested you could videotape it. Is that some sort of compromise that could be?
We're open to the idea of videotaping it. The fact of the matter is, though, he is trying to run the clock on us, and that's why we think he's filed this motion to quash. They also, Fusion GPS also tried that. They were knocked down, and instead he came in, Glenn Simpson came in and took the 5th. What Jim Comey's intentions are, I don't know, other than that it's pretty clear he doesn't want to come in and answer the detailed questions that we have.
I'm looking at the calendar. I know you are as well. You're almost out of time, right? I mean, first week of January, the gavel switches.
We have another month. Now, of course, when that happens, we already have indications from Lindsey Graham, who's expected to be the new chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, and Ron Johnson, who is the chairman of the Senate Oversight Committee, that they intend to pursue this. And we also know that the Inspector General, who's already filed a 400-page report, so if you're looking for questions for Mr. Comey, you need to look no further than a 400-page report from the Inspector General regarding matters. And that, coupled with the documents we've examined and the witnesses we've talked to, have given us a plethora of questions that he needs to come in and answer so we can complete this investigation.
Let me slide in a few more things here in the minute I have left. Comey's statement from his attorneys reads like this: Mr. Comey should not be coerced into participating in an improper partisan effort to undermine the legitimacy of an institution that he served for the better part of 4 years. There is no legitimate reason why Mr. Comey cannot provide sworn live public testimony about the matters under investigation. You took to Twitter last night on that. Here's what you said: the truth is best served with transparency. What is Director Comey trying to hide from the American people with this baseless motion to quash? So you got this battle with James Comey. What happens with Rod Rosenstein? Will you get a satisfactory answer from him over the next month about the reports that he was willing to wear a wire, and find out whether that was true or not?
I think it's very important that Mr. Rosenstein answer questions with regard to that. I know he's put out a statement denying it, and we have a New York Times report with regard to it, but I think the public deserves to have more information about that. And there are a few other things that Mr. Rosenstein could testify about.
Well, you got a lot moving on both fronts, though. How much can you get done, sir?
We're close to the end. These are the last witnesses that we need to do. We've examined, hundreds of thousands of pages of documents, searched through them, and have thousands of documents that are relevant to our investigation. And all of these witnesses, we're ready to turn that over to the Senate, and we're anxious to see what additional work the Inspector General does. Mr. Gowdy and I have, of course, also called for the appointment of a second special counsel, especially when you have Glenn Simpson at Fusion GPS coming in and taking the Fifth Amendment, and others who are reluctant to testify.
Yeah, you sound confident that you'll get your answers. We'll see if that's the case. Sir, thank you for coming back here. Bob Goodlatte from Virginia. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Bill.
Facebook facing backlash after Chief Operating Officer Sheryl Sandberg reportedly calls for an investigation into billionaire George Soros for criticizing the company. How Facebook is responding to that this morning. And a deputy U.S. Marshal killed while trying to serve an arrest warrant. What we now know about the suspect and how this all unfolded. Facebook under fire again after its chief operating officer, Sheryl Sandberg, reportedly asked staffers to research George Soros' financial interests. According to the New York Times, the request came just days after the billionaire attacked Facebook during a speech at the World Economic Forum. Jackie Heinrich's live in New York City with more on this. Jackie?
Sandra, according to the New York Times, Facebook confirmed that Sheryl Sandberg asked her communications team to determine if George Soros would profit from attacks against the social media giant. But just 2 weeks ago, Sandberg denied knowledge about a separate effort to push negative stories about Soros. It's all causing questions about just how much Facebook's second in command was involved in a campaign against the liberal billionaire. The request from Sandberg came after Soros blasted tech companies in a speech at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, saying the companies could threaten democracy and impact human behavior. The speech coming at a time when Facebook was under the microscope for disseminating Russian propaganda. But the earlier denial was related to a separate push to circulate negative stories about Soros that put Facebook in hot water after the firm they hired was linked to anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. According to the Times, Facebook commissioned a campaign-style opposition research effort by Definers Public Affairs aimed to discredit critics of the company. They later fired Definers after a Times investigation. Sandra?
Jackie, Definers was hired to dole out public information to reporters about Soros's funding. This is all something that we continue to learn more on this story. A lot of interest in this story, so we're going to continue to follow all this. Jackie, did you have any final thoughts?
Yeah, this is all after a Times investigation revealed that definers hired to dole out information about reporters to about Soros's funding of American advocacy groups, that drew scrutiny because they were linked to anti-Semitic groups. Definers was. Sandberg denied that she had much knowledge about the specifics, later announcing an internal audit into how Facebook's policies affected minority users and also employees. Now, we did reach out to Facebook for comment this morning. So far, we have not gotten a response, but we are awaiting a comment this morning from both sides.
All
Sandra?
right, we will await that. Jackie Heinrich, thank you very much.
Meantime, some migrants to the U.S.-Mexico border are launching a hunger strike in protest against the U.S. government. This as Tijuana faces increasing strain from the growing number of migrants. We are live from the border city. Let you know what's happening there today, Sandra.
Meanwhile, the battle to keep the government open, it is heating up as the president stands firmly on funding for that border wall, saying the fight over that could trigger a partial government shutdown. Will it? Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton will join us next.
That there is a flippant comment about shutting down the border. It impacts the economy and the lives of hundreds of thousands, not millions of people that are reliant on that trade and commerce.
We're in. All right, well, we are getting some live look here at some of the world leaders arriving for the G20 summit. We are expecting the president to be arriving at the top of the hour at the Costa Salguero Costa Salguero Center. This would be the actual site of the G20 summit. And this is that big, grand moment where we will see all of those world leaders come together. Will there be a meeting or at least a brush with Vladimir Putin and President Trump? These are all questions right now, but this is certainly the moment that we are arriving there in Buenos Aires.
Yeah, the family photo, as they call it, is in 30 minutes, so we're going to have that covered for you. And when President Trump has this meet and greet with his host, we'll bring that to you as well. The G20 countries have a lot of issues on the table, especially at this time, whether it's the matters with Russia, dealing with Ukraine, the president calling that meeting off yesterday. But, Sandra, a moment ago, the Kremlin put out a statement that they will have a, quote, brief impromptu meeting between President Trump and Vladimir Putin. Whether that happens, is that a pull aside? Is that a 2-minute conversation? What is that? Is that more than just a handshake? We'll see. But there will be a lot of news out of this regarding Russia, regarding China, and already the news about the new deal that was signed between Canada and Mexico, rewriting the rules on NAFTA. It takes us back 20, 25 years. So a lot of news expected from Argentina.
A lot of meetings for the G20 over the course of a year, but this is obviously the big one in which the agenda culminates at the Leaders Summit. As we await the president, this could be happening in the next half an hour or so. Trade is going to be a big topic in the meeting with President Xi. NAFTA to be signed obviously already did. And the biggest by far is going to be whether or not that meeting happens with Vladimir Putin. So we await all of that.
We do. In the meantime, to the border we go. Some of the migrants stage a hunger strike at the U.S.-Mexico border, saying they've got a right to enter the U.S. to seek asylum. Meanwhile, that city, Tijuana, is buckling under the human strain that is put on it. Griff Jenkins back on the border in that city, Tijuana, Mexico. Griff, good morning.
Good morning, Bill. The rain here in the last 24 hours has made dire conditions even worse. Take a look behind me. You can just see all of the clothes, all of the tents, all of their belongings just absolutely drenched. It's in the low 50s here. You can see here the trash that's begun to accumulate belongings, as well as medicine, some drops here, some sort of pills. Remember, we reported yesterday on the health risks here with 60% suffering from respiratory. But look inside here. Look at the very extremely difficult conditions that these migrants, the 6,000 or so, are living under right now. And that is why Juan Manuel Gastelum, the mayor of Tijuana, says that when it comes to blame, he places it exactly on the organizers for bringing them here. Listen.
Those are really criminals because they're dealing with lives. They're dealing with people. It's a federal crime. If they ask me, do you know who they are? No, I don't know, but just look at the films. Look at them and you'll find who are they.
Now, when you consider what happened on Sunday when these migrants charged that border, it cost them 129 million pesos. That's $6 million of trade. And when you look at what's happening here, trying to keep this very unsanitary camp going, I asked the mayor, who's footing the bill here? Here's what he said.
Tijuana
Yeah.
is footing the bill. It cost how much?
Approximately $25,000 a day, every day. And our economy is not that great.
Right.
It's not enough. The Mexico federal government has to take over.
And that's why he hopes that the incoming president, Lopez Obrador, who will be inaugurated tomorrow, will help. Finally, you mentioned that hunger strike. It started in the rain yesterday. It was going to be a march. They shut it down quickly. We'll find out what happened today, but it's no time for a hunger strike in the conditions they're already under. Bill?
Thank you, Griff. Griff Jenkins from the border there. More now with Sandra.
Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton joins us now with more on this. Ken, you just heard the words there of the mayor saying Mexico has to take over. What does happen next?
Well, obviously, I think Mexico made a huge mistake letting these people cross their southern border. They're going to have to deal with that in the future. And now I agree with the mayor of Tijuana. He's got a problem. He's got to expend all these resources that he doesn't have, and there's no time limit on it. So these people are stuck in a really bad situation, and so is the mayor of Tijuana and the people of Tijuana.
What's finally going to give? I mean, the hunger strike, Tijuana is obviously completely strained at this point. I mean, something's got to give, and we're watching this situation just get worse.
I think it's with Mexico. I think he's right. I think the Mexican government needs to step in, and they're the ones that let these people cross the border. Now they're responsible for taking care of them. So I really believe it's up to the Mexican government to step up and take care of these people.
Meanwhile, there is the battle over funding the border wall. That is certainly heating up. And there's a big question whether or not Democrats are going to work with Republicans and the president on this issue. Where do you see that going?
Well, certainly I'm hopeful that they'll work with them. I've been hoping that ever since the election, that finally, after this election, we could come together and start negotiating some kind of compromise that the Democrats can be happy with and the Republicans be happy with. Obviously, this is an important issue to the border states and to the entire country.
Democrats, would they rather shut down the government than get something done on this issue? That's the big question as we move forward and watch this play out.
I certainly hope that's not true. They have an opportunity here. There's an opportunity, as we have a Democratic Congress coming into being, they have an opportunity to step up and work with the president and get something done on this. Otherwise, we all suffer. There's really no point in not trying to negotiate some type of compromise.
And we continue to see these images coming out of there. These ones that are showing on the screen right now, Tijuana, where we just heard Griff Jenkins reporting. The resources there continue to run low. I mean, you've got thousands of migrants crowding that city there. What do you think the American people, I mean, their views certainly have been changing on this. And these images, they certainly play out in how you see this whole situation unfolding. What do you think the tolerance of the American people is for this?
Well, look, it's a complicated issue. I feel for these people. I think the mayor of Tijuana hit it on the head when he blamed the organizers for basically using these people as pawns. And so now they're stuck in the middle. And, it's a complicated issue. If we allow them in, then it creates an incentive for that to happen over and over again. That's just not the process that our country has set up. And so, I do feel sorry for these people, and I feel sorry for them because of the organizers, and I feel bad that Mexico allow this to happen.
What do you make of the White House response to the current situation?
The responsibility of the president is to protect the border, to secure the border, to make sure that we're not allowing criminals in, that we have legal immigration. I am completely for legal immigration. We need workers in Texas, but it needs to be done the right way, and we have no idea who these people are. The president's claiming that some of them are criminals. We know that we get criminals crossing our border all the time, because we keep track of those statistics. So, it's a serious issue that has to be resolved.
Well, he's got a lot on his plate right now, obviously, down in Argentina for the G20 summit. But this is an issue that will be front and center, especially over the funding of the border wall and a potential government shutdown. So we'll see how it all plays out. Ken Paxton, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me on. Have a great day.
All right, we're going to have more on this funding fight. Our headliner, House Majority Whip Steve Scalise, has some strong viewpoints on all of this. He will be joining us next hour.
Looking forward to that. In the meantime, here we go from the U.S. Supreme Court. This is the first look at the official class picture that features Brett Kavanaugh. Some images that were recorded a bit earlier today. There he is, the latest U.S. Supreme Court justice, and a close-up shot there. So there you have it, all 9. They look happy, right, Sandra?
Yeah, and after the recent health scare, I guess you could call it, with Ruth Bader Ginsburg, there she is, and what a moment that is.
Yes, it is, Elena Kagan and more. So there you have it, just coming in from the High Court in Washington, D.C. Sonia Sotomayor. Want me to go through all of it, or you want me to do the whole roster, or should we stop now, huh? I think we can stop.
It's certainly a moment to take in after everything that's happened over recent
Nice stuff there. Okay, from the U.S. Supreme Court. There's this from last night. You got this, Smitty, right?
All right, Thursday night football on Fox. The New Orleans Saints, one of the best teams in the NFL. But last night, they suffered a big loss to the Dallas Cowboys. Final score, 13-10. The Cowboys defense stops a 10-game winning streak for the Saints.
Wow, big victory for Dallas.
Yowza.
I mean, I think the Saints scored like 180 points 2 weeks ago. to just get 10 in Dallas, really good defense on behalf of the Cowboys.
So it was all about the defense, Dallas defense, strong?
So.
All right.
Yeah. I was expecting them, but yeah, I mean, come on. Right up now.
All right, the winning streak comes to an end.
President Trump doing some high-stakes wheeling and dealing now, meeting with the Chinese president after a trade battle between the two countries. This is not settled yet. Is there a deal to be made? Congressman Sean Duffy reacts on that coming up next. Plus this.
Well, good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. Once again, for about the fourth night and 4 nights in a row, there is just a lot going on in the news. Up ahead, we'll have details about new dangers lurking in the Central American migrant caravan, the one that's just across our southern border tonight in Tijuana. The caravan is not what they told you it was. We'll tell you what it actually is. And then the question of voter suppression. Voter suppression is a phrase you're hearing a lot lately from Democrats. Suddenly it seems like it's 1956 again. But is voter suppression actually happening in America? We have the numbers on that, the conclusive numbers. Plus, with Christmas upon us, the left is mounting an attack on, naturally, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. We'll tell you what they're saying about him. But first tonight, the big news. President Trump's former personal attorney, Michael Cohen, pleaded guilty in federal court today to lying to Congress. Cohen conceded that he was intentionally wrong. He lied about the dates of an abortive Moscow real estate deal when he testified to the Senate Intelligence Committee last year. Cohen's plea was, of course, big news on cable television. The president responded to it as well. He called Cohen, quote, weak and, quote, not a very smart person. Well, that's objectively true, of course. It's also worth asking why anyone would hire a weak, dumb lawyer. Someday we'll get to the bottom of that. But for now, let's consider what we have just learned about how Washington works. Apparently, it's now an enforceable felony to lie to the U.S. Congress. On one level, that is good news. We should take our own laws seriously. Functional countries do that. Nations in decline set up sanctuary cities and ignore their own borders. Nor is it implausible that Michael Cohen might have broken this law or really any other law. Nobody who knows him is shocked by the allegation. If Cohen was accused of running a cannibalism ring, you'd have to at least take the charge seriously. Anything is possible with that guy. So 3 cheers for law and order. The problem is, if you're going to enforce statutes, you have to enforce them fairly and evenly. The law has to apply to everyone. Otherwise, it's not really the law. It's a political weapon. Michael Cohen is facing 5 years in prison for telling Congress something that he knew was false. How often does that happen in Washington? If you watch C-SPAN, you know the answer. Constantly. All the time. There are almost never consequences, by the way. According to one study, between the Second World War and 2007, a total of only 6 people were convicted of lying to Congress. 6 people in 60 years. In other words, the law is not enforced, and that's why people break it so often. Watch this sworn testimony from 2013. This is not someone you haven't heard of. This is the then Director of National Intelligence, Jim Clapper, assuring the Congress under oath that the NSA absolutely does not spy on American citizens.
Does the NSA collect any type of data at all on millions or hundreds of millions of Americans?
No, sir.
It does not.
Not wittingly.
Yeah. Clapper lied. He's a liar. There's no debate about that. And yet he wasn't charged for lying under oath. In fact, Clapper got richer after he retired. CNN hired him as an analyst. Pretty much the same thing happened to Jim Comey, the former FBI director. In 2017, Comey claimed, again under oath, that he had never been an anonymous source for news stories while he worked at the FBI. Watch him tell that lie to the Congress.
Director Comey, have you ever been an anonymous source in news reports about matters relating to the Trump investigation or the Clinton investigation?
Never.
Have you ever authorized someone else at the FBI to be an anonymous source in news reports about the Trump investigation or the Clinton investigation?
No.
Yeah, well, according to Comey's longtime deputy who would know, and that would be former FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe, what Comey said on the tape you just saw is totally untrue. So Comey lied to Congress. But nobody cared. Jim Comey went on to get rich as a pundit selling his book. The same people rooting for Michael Cohen's destruction for lying consider Jim Comey a hero. And then there's former CIA Director John Brennan. Brennan lies constantly. That's well documented. In 2011, for example, Brennan claimed that drone strikes overseas had never, to his knowledge, killed a single non-combatant. That was a total crock. In 2014, Brennan lied and said the CIA had not broken into the computers of Senate staffers. And then last year, under oath before Congress, Brennan said this.
Do you know if the Bureau ever relied on the Steele dossier as part of any court filings, applications, petitions, pleadings?
I have no awareness.
Did the CIA rely on it?
No. It was not in any way used as a basis for the intelligence community assessment that was done.
Yeah, that's a total lie, a flagrant lie, and a significant one about something that affects the life of this country. And yet, you know how the story ends? Brennan was never charged with a felony for lying to the Congress. In fact, just the opposite. Washington rewarded him. Brennan is now an analyst for NBC News. He could be on the air tonight telling you why it's so vitally important that Michael Cohen was charged with lying to Congress. Because we really can't have that. Rule of law, blah, 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 blah. Do you notice a theme here that connects all of these stories? Yes, there is one, and it's simple. The well-connected can do pretty much whatever they want. They can lie to the Congress with impunity, and they do. They can lobby for foreign governments without bothering to register, and they do. If they're rich enough, they can even, I don't know, molest children without being seriously punished. Ask Jeffrey Epstein. He did that. None of this, by the way, is a defense of Michael Cohen. That guy's a creep. He may very well wind up in jail. But if Cohen does wind up in jail, let's hope he's just the first in a long series of prosecutions. If the law is applied to Michael Cohen, then it has to be applied to people who have lied about things that actually matter. Jack Abramoff knows a lot about Washington. He's been here a long time. He's a former lobbyist, and he joins us tonight. Jack Abramoff, you've seen both sides of this. You've been in a position similar to the one Michael Cohen is now, charged with a crime under the lights, and you've also operated freely in Washington. Do you think that I'm overstating the case? Is the law evenly applied in this city?
No, it doesn't seem to be evenly applied or anything close to evenly applied. And I think that this is one of the things that upsets the American people everywhere I go when I speak. People now, instead of ranting against corruption as they normally do, they've identified this as really one of the big problems that you have on the left. A series of people, the list is actually too long even to recite on the air, who have seemingly committed unbelievable crimes, the Clinton Foundation, et cetera. And instead of being punished or prosecuted or indicted, they're running for Congress, like Donna Shalala and others. And so I think that it seems certainly that the justice system in America, even under Republican presidents, is geared to go after people on the right and to ignore people on the left. Again, that's not to excuse Michael Cohen. I don't know what his deeds are, and we'll see what they are. But it seems that people on the left who are doing far worse than that, nobody says a thing about them.
It also seems like the slowest gazelle gets eaten. I mean, Michael Cohen is dumb, if I can just say, someone who knows him, and not personally popular, and obviously he's attached to a very unpopular presidential campaign and a very unpopular candidate. And so he seems like a very natural target, whereas someone like Jim Clapper, who's seen as this wise man, this chin-tugging graybeard, can lie about something deeply significant, about breaking the law. The NSA is not allowed to spy on Americans. And he gets a TV contract. I mean, have you seen, can you think of in your many years here, decades here, an example of someone's really powerful being punished for breaking the law?
No, I can't. I can't think of a. I mean, certainly since Watergate, and even the people who were punished in Watergate really weren't very powerful people. Right, exactly. No, and I think that the problem for Michael Cohen is he's a gazelle running in the wrong pack.
Right.
If you were running in the left-wing pack, no matter where he is in that pack, because there aren't exactly brilliant gazelles in that pack either.
Exactly.
But that's a more of a protected pack, it seems, for some reason.
Huh. So that's not, and I just want to be totally clear for the fifth time, I'm not defending whatever crime Michael Cohen is accused of committing, and it sounds like he admitted it, okay? He should be punished. But it does seem like that's corrupt. That's not justice when a law is only applied selectively.
Well, it's corrupt and it's corrosive of the view of our system among the American people. There are a lot of people, even people on the left, I've talked to, who say, you know, it doesn't seem like things are really being fairly applied, particularly the Epstein situation, which is absolutely abhorrent.
Yes.
Here's somebody who is molesting children, it seems, and